So it's fair to say the iPad range is a complete mess right now, but thankfully Apple plans to completely overhaul the range, and most of the issues we have right now are going to be fixed, so let's delve into it. This all comes from Mark Gurman, who's a very credible source. The man is mostly spot on, and so we can trust this information. However, I don't want to just be regurgitating what he said, and so I'm going to sprinkle in my ideas for the iPad range in this video as well, and delve into what I think could happen. Beginning with the regular iPad, Gurman firstly makes it pretty clear Apple's done with the iPad 9, and it's about time. Don't get me wrong, this iPad is still pretty solid for the most part, and over the last few weeks I've seen it drop massively in price, and so for someone just wanting the basics out of an iPad experience, this is still a decent purchase. Although Apple directly is selling this for much more, and considering it sticks out like a sore thumb with the home button design and the wretched lightning ports, it is very much time for this model to be retired. In its place should be the iPad 11, which I am looking forward to because I am pretty sure it's going to get a price cut. Unfortunately for me, Gurman says nothing about a low price in this report. However, he does make it clear this will be replacing both the iPad 9 and iPad 10, and so I feel like that has to be a sign this is getting cheaper. I doubt they want to keep this at $449. That does price out a large majority of low-end consumers, especially those in education, and so I do think we're going to see this drop to $399 or $349. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. Now ideally, over the next few generations of this redesigned base iPad, I'm hoping it drops back down to $329, but even if it doesn't and it's only $349 at best, a small increase for the much better design is completely fine. And by the way, for those theorizing that maybe the iPad 10 could stay in the range at a low price, I highly doubt that, considering the iPad 11 should literally be the same iPad, but with a newer A15 chipset. And remember, the objective is to make the iPad range simpler, not of course fragment it even more. Now, unlike the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, Gurman vaguely says we should see the iPad 11 later in the year. And so I'm guessing we're going to see this at the September event alongside the iPhone 16. Another possible iPad release we could see in September is the iPad mini. Now this is long overdue for a refresh because the last model released all the way back in 2021, and while unfortunately the iPad mini 7 is also just going to be a spec refresh. What we've heard so far is a new chipset, though no one's yet to confirm which chip it's actually getting, but also maybe some new cameras and a new LCD display that does fix the jelly scrolling issue that plagues the current model. Now I say issue in quotations because when I did use the iPad mini 6, I'll be honest, I could barely notice it. But of course, I know some complained about it and vowed to never buy an iPad mini till they fix this, so I'm happy that Apple's addressing it. But honestly, the iPad mini is probably the iPad model right now that's the most straightforward option. If you want an iPad to just be an iPad, or you need something more compact, this is absolutely the one you should get. And really the only thing I would like to see that hasn't been rumored is 128 gigs of base storage. It's laughable really that offering 64 gigs of storage on very expensive iPads even today. It's acceptable on the base iPads, I'm fine with those being at 64 gigs, but the Mini and Air should really be offering double the storage. And that's a nice segue into the iPad Air, because we have heard a lot about the M2 refresh that's going to launch in March, but of course a big new feature is going to be a new size option. Similar to the iPhone 15 Plus and the MacBook Air 15-inch, Apple's suddenly obsessed with large non-Pro devices, and so the Air will now be following suit, and it's getting a new 12.9-inch version. Now I've expressed my thoughts on this in multiple videos, but basically I'm still kinda mixed on this. Whether this is worth buying or not heavily depends on the price, because if it's only $100 more than the 10.9-inch, that's not too bad, but if it's $799, that puts it in a very similar price category to the older 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro. I know this will have a new M2 chipset, but as we all know, that power is all completely wasted on iPadOS, and so if you get the older iPad Pro for the same price, yes, you have a slower chipset, but in return, you get mini LED, quad speakers, Face ID, and so yeah, the larger Air is gonna be a tough sell. And yes, you could argue the same applies to the MacBook Air 15-inch, and also the iPhone 15 Plus, but in my opinion, they do at least have one redeeming factor that makes them worth buying. For example, with the 15 Plus, you're getting the best battery life any iPhone offers, and so if you value that, which I personally do, I could understand going for that over an older 14 Pro Max. And with the 15-inch MacBook Air, like the name does suggest, it's considerably thinner and a tad lighter than the 14-inch, and so if you want a more portable option, you could justify getting the 15-inch instead. But with the 12.9-inch iPad Air, I really can't think of any advantage. The battery life likely won't be better because all iPads roughly perform about the same, and also it's not going to be much thinner or more compact than the iPad Pro because Gurman does actually say this will use the exact same Magic Keyboards the current 12.9-inch iPad Pro offers, and so we know for sure the Air's gonna have similar dimensions. I guess if you really don't want to buy refurbished products from Apple for some reason, the Air could be a decent choice, but I'm still not too excited about this model. This will literally be the only notable new thing about this iPad. Internally, Gurman says it's only getting the M2, that's about it, so it's not even getting the newest chipset, which of course is M3, but then again, it doesn't really matter when it comes to an iPad. Like I said for the Mini, I'm hoping we do see double the base storage. That certainly could make up how stale this refresh could be, but ultimately guys, I don't care about this new S6. I think I'm more excited about the fact this will help the iPad Air 5 get cheaper, which I might consider buying. Now let's finally talk about the big boy, which is the iPad Pro. This is getting a big refresh next year with its first redesign since 2018. Well, kind of. I feel like leakers are gassing up what basically will be the same design with slimmer bezels, which isn't really a redesign, it's more of an evolution over the existing design. But hey, I'll take that. That's not a bad thing. I'm sure many of us can agree on the fact the current iPad Pro design is pretty close to being perfect, and they can really only make the bezels thinner at this point. Now, Apple's apparently using the same LiPo technology they used on the 15 Pros to shrink the bezels on those phones, and so as a result, the new display sizes could be 11.1 inches and 13 inches. Gurman actually explains that because the larger iPad Pro is getting even bigger, this allows Apple to pass down the existing 12.9-inch size to the iPad Air range. That's interesting considering they made the bezels thicker on purpose with the 2020 iPad Air to make it 10.9 inches, just so it's slightly smaller than the iPad Pro, so I do wonder if the smaller iPad Air is now going to be 11 inches. This won't be the only change of course, because we're also getting OLEDs. For the first time with the iPad Pro, it's coming to both sizes, and I'm pretty excited about this though, of course, because Apple's adopting new tech on these iPads, they're gonna come with a price increase, and that's what worries me because it's already hard justifying the current retail price for these iPads. And so if the 11-inch now starts at $1,000 and the 13-inch becomes $1,200 or $1,300, that would be quite a lot for a device that's gonna be massively restricted by the software. Anyways, Apple's not only changing the design of the actual iPads, but they're also updating the accessories. And to be fair, the accessories right now are a complete mess. They definitely need to be streamlined, and so here's the breakdown guys. The base iPad will use the USB-C pencil and the Magic Keyboard Folio as it does today. The iPad Air will continue using the existing Magic Keyboards, and the iPad Pro gets a higher end keyboards that's going to have an aluminium top case and a larger trackpad. iPad and Pro, however, are going to share support with the 3rd generation pencil. Now I'll be honest guys, I don't necessarily think this will be the right move because while I'm completely fine with Apple finally getting rid of the 1st gen pencil, I think they should also get rid of the old Magic Keyboards. Even if the Pros get a new version, it would still be odd the more expensive Air continues to use a Magic Keyboards that doesn't have a function row, even though the cheaper iPad's Magic Keyboard Folio has one. That needs to be addressed, and so killing off the old keyboards and allowing support for the new keyboard across the iPad Air and Pro range makes the most sense. Remember, the displays are increasing because the bezels are getting thinner. I doubt the actual footprint of these iPad Pros are going to be changing drastically, so they can easily share Magic Keyboards with the iPad Air like they do today. At least that's what I think makes the most sense. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.